Hello everybody. Alright, today I'm going to show you how to make your own clay dough. Okay, and again, I know this is not going to be anything as exciting and neat as what we were going to be doing at school, but hey, we got to make the best of what we got here. So, something that you can do here at home, cheap, easy, fun, still messy, okay, is you can make your own dough here at home using flour, water, and salt. That's all you need. Okay, so first thing, make sure you have a mixing bowl. Okay, you guys are going to mix together, and again, it just depends on how much you want to make, how much dough you want to make. If you want to make something big, I would definitely follow the recipe that I'm linking in this assignment. I'm going to cut it in half just because for my demo purposes, I don't need to use a lot. Okay, so I already measured out 2 cups of flour in here, okay, but if you guys are making it at home and you're following my recipe, you would use the 4 cups, okay, so 4 cups of flour. The recipe also calls for a cup of salt. I'm using a half of a cup because I'm cutting it in half, okay, and then a 1.5 cups of water. I'm cutting it in half again, so I'm using 3/4 of a cup of water. And you just pour it all into the bowl. All right. If you want to get really dirty, just use your hands, go in and start mixing it together. I am going to start with a spoon and then switch over to my hands once it isn't as wet and it gets mixed together a little bit more. So I'm just going to go ahead and kind of mix it together here. And right away you will feel it kind of thicken if you're stirring it. It's going to be pretty quick. It should be like the consistency of like if you're making like pie crust or pizza dough or bread dough at home. It's going to be very, very similar to that. Okay, so now you can see that it's clumping together, thickening up really nicely. So what I'm going to do here is switch over to using my hands. And I'm just going to knead it. Okay, so I'm going to take my hands, get them dirty here, and I'm just going to kind of like pinch and squeeze that dough together. Alright, if we were in the classroom, this process here, we would call this wedging. Okay, now what wedging will do for the clay, it is going to basically press out all of those air bubbles and get it ready to fire in the kiln. If you put a piece of clay in the kiln that has air bubbles in it, what's going to happen is it's going to expand as the kiln is heating up and getting hotter. Gases will start to form in those little air pockets, and once the kiln reaches a certain temperature, those gases will have nowhere to escape to. So those air pockets are going to slowly start to expand and get bigger and bigger until it combusts and it basically makes your piece explode. So the process of wedging will make it to where it won't do that. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and put my bowl off to the side here now. You could do this on any table or surface or countertop. Okay, if you're doing it directly on the countertop, I would recommend putting on a little bit of flour first so it doesn't stick. Alright, so what I'm going to do now is I'm going to wedge. Okay, and this process is the exact same thing as when you're wedging pie crust or bread dough. You're going to use both your hands and you're going to press down and out, and you're just going to keep flipping it over and over and repeating this process to push out those air bubbles or to knead this dough together. So down and out, down and out, down and out. And you can do this as long as you want to. If yours is feeling a little too wet and it's not clumping up together nicely like this and forming into a ball, then I would add in a little bit of extra flour. If it is too hard where it's starting to crumble under your fingertips, then you probably want to add in a little bit of extra water. You should get it to the consistency where when you're playing with it and wedging it, it's not really sticking to your hands a whole lot. You may have a little bit just because of the flour, and that's what bread dough does. But it shouldn't be where like you're touching it and it's like pulling this to your hands directly. Okay, so I'm gonna kind of show this to you guys up close here. This is what the consistency will look like. All right, now at this point, you are ready. Like after you've wedged it, maybe like, I don't know, anywhere between 2 to like 5 minutes or so, it should be ready to start forming with things. So now you guys can really do whatever you want with it, okay? If you're going to follow some of my tutorials that I have attached, like if you're doing a pinch pop, I would start it out with a ball like this, kind of roll it around, get it into a nice ball shape, okay? And then use the thumb to make that whole opening and then start going around using that pinch pot technique or method that I showed you guys, okay? If you're going to be doing like a slab or a coil pot, you need to make your base first, okay? So with this, and I actually don't have a rolling pin here at home, you could use a rolling pin, you can just use your hands to flatten it out if you want to. When you're using this salt dough clay, okay, you can pretty much use any household utensils to cut it, to shape it, to mold it. So like if you're wanting to cut it, a regular butter knife would be fine. You could use a spoon, like for molding purposes, or if you're wanting to sculpt with it. Like I said, the rolling pin to flatten it out. Anything you can find in the kitchen would work just fine for all of that. Okay, now I do want to talk about like if you are attaching pieces together. Okay, so what I'm going to do here is I'm just going to make like a basic base. Okay, like if you were going to make a slab piece or a coil, doesn't matter, you still need to make a base for it. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and cut out a basic circle. That's a pretty good circle right there. Okay, now if you're doing a slab or a coil, okay, you can still do the coil techniques with this, the salt dough, okay, using your fingertips just like I showed you guys in the video the other day. Rolling out those coils until you get a nice looking coil. It's going to be a little bit long. Okay, place my base out here and my coil on top of it. Alright, any extra you could just cut that off just like the video showed the other day. Okay, now this is actually going to be a little bit easier to attach than clay. Okay, all you're going to really have to do is just basically use your fingers, kind of like if you ever played with Play-Doh, and basically just mush those connections together. That's all it's going to be. Feel free to use a little bit of water if you want to. So have some water on hand, get it wet to attach it, pinch them together, squeeze them. Okay, so I have that coil attached. I'll zoom in here so you guys can see I attached it right there. Alright, and then to get this coil here to stick to my base, you can use a fork. Okay, so what you're going to do with the fork then here is you're going to press using the tip of the fork here, and the inside coil here, you're just going to take that and mush it into your base. And I'll zoom in here in just a moment so you can see what that looks like. If you've ever made peanut butter cookies before, you may have used this to kind of like scratch the top surface of it to get those pretty lines. It's the same thing. Okay, so you can see where I have pressed and indented that coil there into the base. All right, now that is going to attach there. If you want to make it extra secure, you can use a little bit of water and run it around the inside there where you press that dough into your base. All right, and then go on to the next coil. If you're doing a slab pot, it's the same thing. Just use the fork on the inside to attach that together. Now I will say you're going to kind of be limited with this salt dough. It's not going to be as easy to braid or to do like different twists and spirals and things like that. You're going to have more basic things, but again, have to work with just what we got here. Make the best of it. that on top of this one. Add a little bit of water first. And then just attach it like I did the previous one, a little bit of water, and then just kind of fuse it together with your fingers. Now, how do we get this piece right here to stick to the one below it? Same thing, okay? Use that fork, okay, and press down and in with that coil. And I'll zoom in here and again in just a second for you guys to see that. Okay. You can kind of see in there where I press that coil down into the previous one. Now I know it looks a little bit messy right now, okay, but even if you're working with clay, it's going to look messy at this point. The key is to just smooth, okay? So once you get done constructing, get a little bit of water on your fingers, get your hands wet, and then go on in there and just kind of press that clay down and in, fill in your holes and your gaps. You can take a little bit of extra clay and stuff, patch it up on the inside, and just keep smoothing it out. Okay, the water right here is acting like my slip, okay? So if we were at school, you would have your slip, a mixture of clay and water, kind of like a glue. So the water in this situation is acting like that slip or the glue for the clay. Okay. All right, so I already got 2 coils going on there, and I'm just gonna keep going up and up with this. Okay, so once I would finish this, okay, if you're happy with your piece, then the next step is to bake it. Okay, so you're going to turn your oven on to, I believe it's 350 degrees. You can look down in my comments in the recipe here to see what that is. And you're going to bake it. I do know, depending on how big your piece is, if you have a smaller one, it's going to be on the lower end of time, like closer to 35 minutes. If you're doing a medium one, probably more like 45 minutes. A large piece, probably up to 50 to 55 minutes. Let it cool completely, and then you can paint it and decorate it however you want to. I do know with stuff like this, you can easily do just like if you have food coloring at home, just dilute a little bit of water with some food coloring and get a paintbrush and paint it that way. Or if you have a regular acrylic or tempera paints and paintbrushes, that should work just as fine as well. Spray paint I think would work on this. Whatever you got, make do with it. Okay? So that was your clay dough at home DIY project for you guys. I really hope that some of you guys get to try this and take advantage of this, especially if you've never worked with clay before. It is a fun alternate. As you can see here, I still can't stop playing with the dough just because it feels so cool. But yeah, definitely try this out and make this at home. If you don't get to it today, that's fine. But anytime over the next 2 weeks or so that you can get these materials and get started on this, please send me pictures, upload pictures, email them to me, start a discussion here in Canvas, however you want to do it, I don't care. You can upload pictures to this assignment. I'm going to leave this assignment open for a while, at least till the end of the school year, going into the summer. So if you end up making something in the next couple weeks, please upload it. I would love, love, love to see what you guys come up with. All right, take care.